G'day guys and gal, it's no secret that almost all traitor space marines, even the ones that used to be cool, became super lame. Their motivations for throwing away the most glorious undertaking of mankind in favor of becoming a demonic plaything just isn't that relatable. The ones that did have decent motivations were either killed, like Argul Tal, or became one-dimensional and boring, like Khan. However, there is one traitor marine that breaks against this mold by being hilarious, fun to read about, and despite being evil, also having his own code of honor with a respectable attitude and motivation. Well, at least as respectable as you can get from being a fucking traitor. That man is Jago Sevatarion, or Sevetar as everyone calls him, first captain of the Night Lords and a character so dope that the only thing holding him back is his very mysterious disappearance from the setting, with no one actually knowing if he is alive or dead, or if he became a founding member of the Grey Knights. Before we get started, I was finally able to get the samples of the Majorkill Christmas merch after one of you naughty boys stole a previous shipment. So those that were waiting to actually see the merch in the flesh, then here you go. This drop features 4 new designs, an updated signature hoodie, as well as the classic fuckhead Santa hat. Each design comes in both t-shirt and singlet form, starting with this one being the Midnight Clad, which is actually a midnight blue color. I'm so glad I was able to source that. We also have the Flesh's Week design, which I think would look fantastic in the gym, in the singlet form, like any Warhammer fan would 100% come up to you and love it. After that, we have the Nothing to Lose design, featuring probably one of the most hardcore quotes with the happy little gas mask man. The final design is on a white t-shirt with a tragically wholesome quote of "For those we cherish, we die in glory. R.I.P. the boys in yellow." The Santa hat is pretty self-explanatory and is guaranteed to get a laugh out of your friends or family for Christmas. I know it's also cooling down in Europe and the US at the moment, so why not pick up the iconic hoodie version 2, which features a minimalist rendition of each of these drops designs on the sleeve to represent the unique launch. As always, the hoodies are warm, comfy, and may get you laid. Not 100% guarantee, but the best part about promoting my own products is there's no one telling me what I can and can't say. We won't be doing another merch drop until we hit 600k, which will take quite a few months. So this is the best time to deck yourself out for Christmas or get someone some dope-ass gifts. Today we'll go over the life, glory, and potential fate of Jago Sevetar, highlighting why he is such a beloved badass character in the process. Let's get into it. Like pretty much every notable Night Lord, Sevetar was born on Nostromo, on the outer skirts of the capital city. This means he was a broke boy that would have had to struggle to survive in a world that hated him because it hated itself. Also, vitamin D wasn't really a thing there, so worldwide testosterone was at an all-time low. Would explain a lot. Sevetar was a psyker, which he wasn't too happy about, as he actively suppressed his psychic ability. This meant he couldn't cast fireballs or shoot lightning out of his dickhole, but his suppressed power still massively boosted his strength, speed, and intelligence. A big reason as to why he was such a monster on the battlefield later in life. Jago was also pretty autistic, not in a tee-hee or Space Marines are autistic way. He was actually genuinely autistic and found it hard to relate to people or socialize. This also gave him a bit of a superiority complex, as he was able to think about situations in a different way and was generally right about everything. He also didn't bullshit or manipulate people because A, he didn't really know how to, and B, it wasn't his vibe. This all came together to ironically make the socially awkward autist universally liked, or at least respected, by both loyal and traitor Space Marines alike. He was one of the few warriors who could totally back up their arrogance, shown by his meteoric rise within the Night Lord Legion as he went from recruit to first captain and equerry of Conrad Curse very quickly. Sevetar was literally one of the only people in the galaxy Conrad actually liked, even if the Night Haunter refused to admit it. I mean, Conrad literally ordered Sevetar to paint his gauntlets red, marking him as a failure who was destined for death or execution, but still had a duty to perform. Sevetar thought this was funny, as he hadn't failed anything, but the theory is that Conrad foresaw Sevetar eventually abandoning the traitor's cause, thus he was pre-marking him. I'll get more into this later, but it is pretty funny seeing the equerry of Conrad and the first captain of the Night Lords, the highest rank in the Legion, being marked as a failure and potential traitor, while still allowing him to maintain his rank. Sevetar was also the only Space Marine to ever beat Sigismund in an honor duel prior to the heresy. Both warriors fought non-stop for 30 hours, with Sevetar eventually getting sick of the duel and headbutting Sigismund, disqualifying himself but also knocking Siggy on his ass. So a bit of a controversial win, but it summed up Sevetar pretty nicely. Honor was for fools. All that mattered was the result. It's also a good time to mention that while Sevatar was a respected and pretty cocky warrior, he was also pretty insecure about his autism. He saw the way his battle brothers bonded naturally and felt pretty jealous about it. He was also a true Night Lord, not one of those criminal man-children who bask in their sadistic nature. He upheld the Legion's ideals of justice, punish the criminal, spare the innocent. He wasn't a fan of his Primarch's degrading mental state, and he would go on to kill a number of his battle brothers that he didn't like. But more on that later. When the heresy broke out, Sevatar was happy to join the traitors' cause, as out of all the legions, the Night Lords were arguably wrong the most. They were the legion that would terrify enemies into compliance. They would end wars through distasteful methods, but those same methods would spare billions of lives and a lot of infrastructure, as opposed to people like the Space Wolves, a respected legion, who would tear a world apart. So when the Night Lords would get censured and looked down upon, whilst the Wolves were lauded, it really pissed the 8th Legion off. Sevatar was actually the first ever traitor marine to say death to the false emperor, one of the most famous war cries of the traitor legion in the 10,000 years since. Despite this, the Night Lords did not join the cause of chaos or even particularly liked it. After the Isfahan dropsite massacre, Argel Tal, a word bearer who was possessed by a demon, walked over to Sevatar to congratulate him on the victory. Sevatar simply spat at the word bearer's feet and saw him as rancid with corruption and disgusting. After this, Sevatar and the Night Lords would go to Thramis to fight the Dark Angels. To their credit, despite the Dark Angel Legion being notably mightier, the Night Lords were able to delay them for years with hit-and-run tactics. Eventually, Conrad sent a parley request to the Lion, who responded and met with his brother, both Primarchs taking 2 honor guard each. Conrad brought Sevatar and another, whilst the Lion brought the legendary Corswain and another. As the Primarchs spoke, Corswain and Sevatar had surprisingly solid banter, with Corswain having some knowledge about Nostramo and teasing Sevatar about his red-painted gauntlets. In turn, Sevatar gave him shit about the way the Dark Angels would wear hoods and cloth over their power armor. Despite being at war, both warriors were smiling and joking through the exchange, showing again how universally liked Sevatar was. Unfortunately, the meeting turned sour when Conrad started shit-talking about the Lion, so the Lion stabbed him and then they got into a brawl. Conrad got the upper hand and began choking the Lion, forcing Corswain to intervene and stab Conrad in the spine. However, this meant that the other Dark Angel Honor Guard had to fight both Night Lords, including Sevatar. Thus he was killed. To finally finish the Thramis Crusade, the Lion went to a world and picked up a mega powerful sentient device that could basically teleport the Lion's fleet wherever he wanted. Thus he used it to ambush the Night Lord's fleet and end the war. At the time, Conrad was in a coma. Sevatar tried to psychically enter his Primarch's mind to wake him up. In doing so, he activated his long suppressed psychic powers, showing that he did actually have a lot of care and loyalty for Conrad, as he really didn't want to have to activate them. In the dream, Conrad told Sevatar to piss off and acted all self-righteous and shit. Sevatar then called Conrad a hypocritical fuckhead who should take responsibility for why the Night Lords turned out so messed up. Sevatar is then kicked out of the dream as the Dark Angel ambush begins, so Sevatar takes charge of the Legion and was actually doing a great job. Maybe he wasn't going to win the battle, but his counterattack was looking good, as was his ability to pull out the Night Lord fleet. But then Conrad woke up and fully Leroy Jenkins the Lion's ship, ruining Sevatar's plan and dooming the Night Lords to lose the battle and suffer massive casualties. Sevatar simply sighed and said, "Fuck me, my dad is retarded," before following his Primarch into their foolish attack. This resulted in a huge chunk of the Night Lord's Legion dying, including most of Sevatar's elite Atramenta Terminators, as well as Sevatar getting captured due to him blacking out from his newly awakened psychic abilities mid-battle. During his imprisonment, he was able to psychically communicate with a young astropathic girl due to his new powers. However, those same powers were making him feel sick, as if he was dying. The girl tried to help him control them, however for speaking with him, she got the shit beaten out of her by the astropathic overseer. This enraged Sevatar as it directly violated his moral code, the innocent being hurt for no reason, the strong taking advantage of the weak. He also quite liked the young astropath and thought she was good company, hence he staged an escape, said hello to her, viciously killed the young girl's tormentor, and then surrendered to be taken back into his cage. The scene is actually pretty badass. After he throttles her tormentor to death and is surrounded by Dark Angels, he says, "I am judgment, I am punishment, and I surrender." When I refer to Sevatar as a true Night Lord, it's shit like this I'm talking about. This is actually the last time we see Sevatar in the lore. He is referenced many times since, but is never actually seen. Most Night Lords say he died towards the end of the heresy, at the Siege of Terror, but we also don't see him escape from the Dark Angels, and no one actually saw him die. Post-heresy, whenever Conrad would summon his Night Lords for a meeting, he would demand the presence of Sevatar, only to be once again told that the first captain was dead. This would then upset Conrad, whose mental state was pretty terrible by this point. Talos believed Sevatar was dead, whilst his battle brother Mercutian held onto the belief that Jago was indeed alive. Then there is the theory that he went on to become a founding member of the Grey Knights. This theory is because he was already pretty anti-chaos, was already not a fan of where the traitor legions were going, was a prisoner of the Dark Angels, and there is a statue of one of the founding Grey Knights called Cryon, who held the Nemesis halberd and whose inscription sounded a lot like something Sevatar would say. Sev was also a Psyker, which was a requirement to become a Grey Knight. Not to mention the original Grey Knights and Knights Errant were taken from all legions, not just loyalist ones. However, based on what ADB has said, him being the creator of the character, it seems as if Sevatar is no longer alive in the setting and didn't become a Grey Knight either. However, it's also insinuated that Sevatar would go on to survive the Horus Heresy and will likely have an in-depth plot that takes place during the Scouring and centuries following the Heresy, neither being a true loyalist or a traitor. Either way, Sevatar's legacy lives on, with the remaining Atramenta splitting up as no leader would ever be worthy of their unity other than Jago, as well as the other Night Lords constantly speaking of him as a figure of legend. Regardless of his fate, Sevatar was a fucking awesome character, a model of what an interesting, multi-dimensional traitor should look like. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then pick up the Majorkill Christmas merch. You can't not get decked out in midnight clad after watching this. Hit the subscribe button and hit the real subscribe button for more lordy content. Join the Discord for more memes and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.